scholarly view. In the past, secular scholars were divided on the origins of the Beta Israel, whether they were the descendants of an Israelite tribe or converted by Jews living in Yemen, or by the Jewish communities in southern Egypt at Elephantine. In the 1930s, Jones and Monroe argues that the chief Semitic languages of Ethiopia may suggest an antiquity of Judaism in Ethiopia. There still remains the curious circumstance that a number of Abyssinian words connected with religion, such as the words for hell, idol, Easter, purification, and alms, are of Hebrew origin. These words must have been derived directly from a Jewish source, for the Abyssinian Church knows the scriptures only in a Ge'ez version made from the Septuagint. Richard Pankhurst summarized the various theories offered about their origins as of 1950, that the first members of this community were 1. Converted Aquas, 2. Jewish immigrants who intermarried with Aquas, 3. Immigrant Yemeni Arabs who had converted to Judaism, 4. Immigrant Yemeni Jews, 5. Jews from Egypt, and 6. Successive waves of Yemenite Jews. Traditional Ethiopian servants, on the one hand, have declared that we were Jews before we were Christians, while more recent, well-documented Ethiopian hypotheses, notably by 2 Ethiopian scholars, Dr. Tadas Tamrat and Dr. Getchechu Haley, put much greater emphasis on the manner in which Christians over the years converted to the Valasha faith, thus showing that the Valasha were culturally an Ethiopian sect made up of ethnic Ethiopians. According to Menachem Waldman, a major wave of immigration from the Kingdom of Judah to present-day Ethiopia dates back to the Assyrian siege of Jerusalem in the beginning of the 7th century BC. Rabbinic accounts of the siege assert that only about 10,000 Judeans remained in Jerusalem under King Hezekiah's command, whereas about 130,000 Judeans led by Shebna had joined Sennacherib's campaign against Terkah, king of Cush. Sennacherib's campaign failed, and Shebna's army was lost at the Mountains of Darkness, suggestively identified with Simeon Mountains. This account is supported by the letter of Aristeas 13, which also describes several later occasions in which Judean armies were sent against Ethiopian forces. According to Jackal and Pyrene, numerous Sabaeans crossed over the Red Sea to Ethiopia to escape from the Assyrians, who had devastated the kingdom of Israel and Judah in the 8th and 7th centuries BCE. She further states that a second major wave of Sabaeans crossed over to Ethiopia in the 6th and 5th centuries BCE to escape Nebuchadnezzar. This wave also included Jews fleeing from the Babylonian takeover of Judah. Although we don't have a single-file ethnographic research on Beta Israel, and the recent history of this tribe has received almost no attention by researchers, everyone who writes about the Jews of Ethiopia feels obligated to contribute his share to the ongoing debate about their origin. Politicians and journalists, rabbis and political activists, not a single one of them withstood the temptation to play the role of the historian and invent a solution for this riddle. Richard Pankhurst stated in 1992, the early origins of the Valasha are shrouded in mystery and, for lack of documentation, will probably remain so forever. By 1994, modern scholars of Ethiopian history and Ethiopian Jews generally supported one of 2 conflicting hypotheses as outlined by Kaplan: an ancient Jewish origin of the Beta Israel, as well as some ancient Jewish traditions later conserved by the Ethiopian Church. Kaplan lists Simon D. Messing, David Slush, Michael Coronaldo, Menachem Waldman, Menachem Elon, and David Kessler as supporters of this hypothesis. A late ethnogenesis of the Beta Israel between the 14th to the 16th centuries, from a sect of Ethiopian Christians who took on biblical practices and came to see themselves as Jews. Stephen Kaplan lists himself among the G.J. Abink, K.K. Shilame, Tadessa Tamrat, and James A. Corin as supporters of this hypothesis. Corin differs from his fellow researchers in the weight he assigns to an ancient Jewish element that the Beta Israel have conserved. Paul B. Hines supported the latter view in his 2000 work, Layers of Time, A History of Ethiopia. These groups came into conflict with the military colonies and Christian mission, which were the main instruments of the extension southward of the Ethiopian state. They may have been joined by dissidents or rebellion rebelling northern Christians who felt their interpretation of rituals, sacred texts, and traditions of art represented a more ancient Israelite connection than Orthodox and monophysite Christianity itself. The Beta Israel can thus be understood as a manifestation of the kind of rebellious archaism that has often come to the surface in Christianity, e.g. Russian Old Believers and German Old Lutherans. Assertion of Jewish derivation, they felt, provided them with a stronger claim to legitimacy than their Christian enemies.